The Fall Guy is a romantic action comedy about a stuntman forced to use his expertise to fight real criminals. So this movie is inspired by the 80s TV series by the same name. In it, we follow Colt Seavers, played by Ryan Gosling. He's a stuntman for the actor Tom Ryder, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson. After a serious injury from a stunt gone wrong, Colt steps back from both the industry and his flame Jodie, played by Emily Blunt, who was a cinematographer he had a casual relationship with. After a long hiatus, he makes his return, hopping on set for Jodie's directorial debut. But with lead actor Tom Ryder missing, Colt has to go on an action-packed misadventure to find him. So this movie teeters between action comedy and rom-com, but for the first half, it leans more into being a rom-com. This is where a lot of feelings are expressed between Colt and Jodie, because after Colt disappeared, Jodie was pretty upset with him and held a lot of resentment toward him. This is driven home through an absolutely hilarious scene where Jodie is repeatedly giving Colt these passive-aggressive directorial notes for his stunts, but she's really just shaming him for leaving. The romance between them gives us something to root for, though, when the movie leans harder into its action comedy elements in its second half. That's when we start to see a lot more stunts, which is what this movie wants to be about. Colt is a stuntman who ends up having to put his durability to the test fighting a real-life conspiracy. This movie is filled with absurd stunts like highway water skiing and riding a crane car and plenty of crashing through things. There's one really cool action scene that I absolutely loved that gives off some serious Scott Pilgrim vibes. It's really hard not to watch scenes like that with a big cheesy smile on your face. So this movie is obviously jam-packed with humor. Some of it was kind of generic, some of it was kind of funny, and then some of it was actually pretty hilarious. There are some jokes in this movie that got me really good. This movie, at the very least, will probably make you chuckle a couple of times, if not just turn you over laughing. So being a movie about the making of a movie, one of the core subjects of the movie is just film. From taking place on film sets to all the movie jargon and references thrown around every other scene, this movie really aims to pull you in through the screen. It's Jodie's directorial debut for her movie Metal Storm, so when she's not dancing around sexual tension with Colt, she is constantly talking about rewrites and stunts and everything involved with the making of the film. There are some bits that are pretty meta, like Jodie talks to Colt about some of the rewrites for the film that are ironic because of how they apply to the film that they are in. For example, there are times where they debate how the third act romance should play out, obviously foreshadowing how the romance should play out in this film. Throughout the movie, characters are constantly making references to real movies, primarily action movies. These, of course, further reflect how very saturated these characters are in the world of film. There are also scenes where they're filming and it jumps back and forth between the finished theatrical product filled with CGI and deep color grades, and then it just smash cuts back to the film set where there's just a bunch of grown men pointing fake guns at each other with a whole crew and blue screens around them. With the movie having so much of the lens on Jodie's action film being made, the importance of stunts in films, and all the action movie references, in a way, this movie kind of just feels like a love letter to action films. There were a few times where the movie jargon felt a bit on the nose. For example, there's a scene where after fighting Colt, a guy goes, "That's a wrap on Colt Seavers." Really cool. This movie also pays homage to generic action flicks by giving us a bad guy that completely spills the beans on everything during the second to third act transition. You know what I'm talking about. They explain everything to us through this character in a way that doesn't seem organic at all. The ending of this movie also felt like the writers were kind of just like, I don't know. Good enough. There could have been like one more scene to end things on a more compelling note. So as you might expect, this movie is a pretty basic popcorn flick. It's got big stars, plenty of action and explosions, some generic humor, and a plot that is easily digestible and kind of predictable. That said, unlike a lot of generic popcorn movies, this one did actually feel kind of special. Within every generic thing about this movie, there were some hidden gems. Despite there being a fair amount of dry humor, there were some laugh out loud moments, despite some of the action scenes being a bit generic. There were some pretty fun stunts pulled off. And despite the performances not really being anything to write home about, the two leads still feel magnetic through their playful dialogue and their vulnerabilities. Overall, this was a really fun movie that has something for just about everyone. It's pretty good. This movie might not capture the hearts of art house film fans, but For most casual moviegoers, this is definitely worth seeing in theaters. Given its rating and subject matter, this could be a good watch for families, assuming that your kids can do PG-13 movies. But it's still mature enough that even if you're older and you and your shithead friends want a fun movie to go see in theaters, this is a good option. Thank you for watching this review. If it brought you any value at all, please consider giving it a like. It really does help the channel grow. I'll see you later this week with my review of Unfrosted.